Dun, dun, dun! Hello, beautiful people, and the motorcycle going by. It is me, Robyn Carpenter Briscoe, your favorite spiritual life coach, and we are here live for another Illimitable Living Sessions with me. I am grateful, grateful, grateful that you are here with me today, and I am exceedingly grateful for the fact that we have Patrick Harrington here with us today. I am really, really excited. I've been trying to sit Patrick down and have a good conversation for a while about whatever I could get him to talk to me about. And now he's here with us. So for you that do not know, because I don't know why, but because I didn't tell you yet, Patrick Harrington is and has been a yoga guru for me for a very long time. He was my yoga instructor when I first moved to Colorado. He makes my heart sing, and I am grateful that he is in my life. He is a husband, father, son, entrepreneur, co-creating transformation for the self and for himself and others as a vehicle for more humane human species. That I love, a more humane human species. He is yogi, he is coach, and he is a teacher. He is my teacher and my friend, and I am grateful you are here, my friend.
Thank you, Robyn. What an awesome! I'd love for you to just introduce me everywhere I go. That'd be great. Thank you. No, it's such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me within your community.
Yes, of course. I knew I was going to get you at some point, and this subject today is a subject I'm super excited to have a conversation with you about, because the first time I even thought of it in different perspectives was when I learned about the word illimitable. So you guys know I love the word illimitable. I was in abundance class with my friend Paula Langeth Ryan, and she said illimitable, and I was like, what is that word? And she was like, it means to be unable to limit. I was like, well, that's my word forever and ever. And then I learned the idea of want, need, and desire. And she said we had, while we were doing this class, we had to do a want, need, desire list, and it was the same list, right? It was the same list because as I was learning it in class, it's the same. Like it's want, need, desire is a is emphasis that we put on the thing, but the thing itself is just a thing, right? So you either have it or it's in consciousness, so it exists. So you want it to exist in your reality, and so that's all it is. It's either it's here or it's here. But that I want something, I need something, it's a real desire of mine, is completely an emphasis that we place on it, which was kind of a mind-blowing thing for me at the time. So what do you feel about this? Is there a difference between want, need, and desire? Is it simply just a way that we're looking at it? What are your thoughts on this, my friend?
Yeah, it's I love the context of illimitable, and I think one of the things that I'll say about that before we jump into the three words and how they relate is illimitable is kind of an overarching thought about what you think is available to you, or what you think is available, period.
Right.
Like, is there an experience called limitless? And it's kind of like, is there an experience called unconditional love?
Right.
Unconditional, illimitable, those are kind of cousins to me in some ways.
Yes.
And so I think like that, there's just a context that I think is important as I was reflecting on this. And my daughter saying hello for something. That I think is the context of the who is listening and who is asking the question is so important, because I think that I was out gardening this morning, and I don't have to garden. I just go to the grocery store.
Right.
So I need food, and when I go to the grocery store, I can see all these different foods that I want. And then there are some like weird fruits from around the world that I have a desire for, but I don't need them. And some of them I don't even want. And yet food is a need.
Yes.
And so it's like, if we're talking about like our basics, shelter, like want, need, desire, to a homeless person,
right,
is a really different scenario. And then even just in the current climate of what's going on in the world right now, want, need, desire to one person of one race may feel very different than want, need, desire to a person of another race, an American or a citizen of the United States versus somebody from Mexico versus somebody from Russia. And so I think for me, it all of a sudden went really deep into this conversation of like, well, who's asking the question, and what is important from their context. And so all of a sudden, want, need, desire came to this real, idea of like, want, need, and desire is a way of contexting a relationship to understand how can I be the best co-creator with you. Like my daughter, want, need, desires are very different, right? Her desire is to watch a music video on Saturday mornings. And it's not a need, although she can think it is. And so this confusing,
like,
right?
I need to, but I
need to. I'm emotional about it. I will cry and fight and scream about this.
I think that you hit the nail kind of on the head with the word emotion, because I really feel like that is where, and then also the whole the situationship of where you are in relation to your basic hierarchically of needs, like Maslow's,
Yes.
safe, do you
Yes.
have food, do you have shelter, that kind of thing. So once once you're there, then everything starts to become much more negotiable, right? It's like,
yes.
It's I spend as little time as possible in a grocery store. I go to the farmer's market. I get eggs from my next door neighbor. Like she's got
Amazing.
chicken. This is like, I live the life I've always wanted to live. Like I literally have the life I've always wanted to have. And that is one of the things that I know, right? But it's one of the things that I said. I said, like our house, I said I wanted to live in a neighborhood where I had nosy neighbors, and not nosy like in your business, but nosy like they pay attention to stuff when things aren't right at your house, right?
Of course.
So, and I say nosy, but it's really more like aware,
interested, or caring.
But I mean, they'll mow our lawn if they know we're going to be out of town too long. When we had a ice storm and we had no power, our next door neighbor let us plug into his generator. So we didn't lose our food in our refrigerator. We were able to, keep our phones plugged in, all the things, and we had heat. So like, want, need, and desire got real different, and
yes, for sure.
In Louisiana, our house is in Louisiana, so weather is a real thing, right? You literally, weather is like, it's a personality. It's almost like a person. Water is a conversation that you have on a regular basis. Interesting enough, different than when you're here in Colorado, right? Where Colorado, it's dry, fire is a hazard, they're worried about the fact that there's no water. And then in Louisiana, it's about too much, and someplace where clean water is a conversation, right? Then it's like they have water, but then
Michigan,
it's water that they can drink, and they have to cook it. And then, first and all and then there's desire. Like that's where like the desire comes in. That's where your emotions, I feel like, really come in. It's like, I really, that thing is something I think would make me really happy, and it's like, but is it a thing that would really make you happy, or is it a thing that would make you smile for a minute? But I always feel like desires are much more fleeting, in their ability to be able to help you feel good about something, like that emotion or that thing that happens. It's like euphoria, and then it's over, and then you desire something else, and then you desire, and any kind of desire, whether it be pleasure or an object, right? It's like once you've achieved it, you have to want a new thing, desire a new thing. Wants are a little bit closer. I want to get a better closure for my patio in my backyard so that I don't get eaten by mosquitoes.
Of course. Big deal in Louisiana.
I have a back patio. That alone is like, it becomes first world problems, right? I have a house with a back patio. So then your conversation starts, well, where's the line? And then there's their judgment in there, because I think it was Caitlyn Jenner was talking about homeless people driving her rich friends from California. Like literally, I was in the statement was, I was in my hangar, and the guy in the hangar next door to me was packing it up because he said he was moving to Arizona because he just couldn't take the homeless anymore. And I was like, that statement in and of itself is so like disconnected from so many people, and where their desires are. It was kind of like the town hall where a political candidate got asked, what's the cost of a gallon of milk?
Oh my goodness.
Well, we're just
blessings to them.
Yes, it's whatever's
blessings. Bring it, everybody, bring it out. Just thank you. Sorry, forgive you.
That's what we want. It's a cat on a roof, up a tree. That's what I always think when I hear sirens. I'm like, okay, we're just gonna think cat.
Just gonna get a cat out the tree. That's all right.
But where it's like, what's the cost of do you know what the cost of a gallon of milk is, or a loaf of bread, or something like that? And they were like, I don't understand the question. Like they didn't understand.
Yeah, Bill Gates.
Yeah,
Bill Gates was asked, how much does a gallon of milk cost? He's like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, and this is something that came up as you were talking, just in the realm of like taken from the perspective of there's proximity to the problem that I think really changes often how I think of it. So if I pull back to a picture from space looking at the Earth, it looks peaceful and beautiful. I don't notice pollution. I don't notice fighting, or that we're on the brink of war or disease, any of that. It just is like, wow, that's a unified place. Right. That's a unified living entity. And then same thing as if I were to, look at a single human just kind of, sitting and watching the world or watching a sunset, I'd be like, oh, there's somebody beautiful and peaceful. But if you zero in on their skin, you would see a battle going on with microbes and biology and things trying to take you down, and viruses that are fighting each other and stuff like that. And same thing when you go in. And so when one hears Caitlyn's conversation with that person, my curiosity is like, at the level of the tribesman that's living on the plains without electricity, running water, anything like that, want, need, desire, and Caitlyn Jenner's neighbor in the hangar next door, want, need, desire, is the feeling of want, need, desire the same feeling? And it's just a different context. Yes. This actually feels real to me, that I can't take the homeless. And it actually feels real to me that I've got that I need to walk 50 miles to get such and such, because that doesn't exist here. And this thing that's happening with colonialism and just kind of like the neo-colonialism of like, we spend quite a lot of time in Costa Rica. And what's interesting about being there as a person who's drastically different socioeconomically, access to education, all these different things in their growing up, and having conversations about want, needs, desires. There was a gentleman that was picking us up from the airport consistently over the course of the years of going back and forth. And we developed a really dear friendship and think of him as a family member. And I said to him on one of our first trips, you know, he speaks only Spanish. And so we were speaking Spanish, and, you know, it was just this opportunity to kind of ask him, so what do you want in life? He said, well, you know, I want there to be a beer when I get home. I want to, you know, see my daughter. I want to have a date with my wife. I hope that there's people coming to Costa Rica so that I can do more trips in the van. And at that time, this was probably 5 years ago, I was like, okay. And like, well, and what else? What do you mean? What else? Like that's what I want. That's what I want. And over the course of 4 or 5 years, I found myself going on this journey with him of projecting a should of, well, why don't you buy a van and then you can own the van and then you're not sharing the revenue with your and I started teaching him about, look, this is the way entrepreneurship, and then all of a sudden he had all these new wants and these new desires, and he was suffering for them in a lot of ways because he didn't have that. So then we found a way to gather. I talked to the school and we said, well, let's have him be the school bus driver for the school where the expats are going. And so we did a campaign, and we bought him a bus, and we did all these things. And, you know, now he's divorced. He's living on the other coast with his parents, and the bus broke down. He couldn't get it fixed. No one, and it was just this thing where I was like, oh my God, I don't want to say that I ruined his life, but there's something about me projecting want, need, desire on somebody who was having the same his own experience of want, need, desire. And in a way, I made it wrong that he was living that, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know. It's just wild. It was wild. I was I just want to love you where you're at.
Right. Well, right. Well, and what's funny about that is there's a, I don't remember what film I was watching, you know, it was something on, and they were talking Happy, I think it was. I think it was Happy. And it was this, you know, measuring a happiness quotient of, you know, everyone around the world and whatever. And the fact that, what's that country?
It's like in strife with civil war all the time.
Yeah.
It's like Niger or something. It's really an intensely hard place. But
people don't feel unhappy, you know, like people.
No, it's like the happiest place.
It's so, and it's so odd to people who feel that their happiness is wrapped up in this and this and this and this and this. Well, how can you be happy? You don't have this and you don't have that and you don't have, and people, I didn't know that I needed that. Now I want that thing, you know, like now
I want that thing. Now I'm suffering.
Yes, because now I don't have it. And
well, in the United States, it's always like 34th. It's like the 34th happiest country or something. You're like, what? How are we not happier?
Well, we have so many things. We are rich in everything. You know, everything. We literally have everything, all the things. We have all of the things, and yet not. And everyone isn't happy. Like, you know, there's no. And there are planes.
I hope he gets that cat.
Well, you know, they're flying the cat in now. I think they're
flying the cat in.
Well, it does. It makes me. It's really funny because periodically, when I feel that I've said yes to too many things, I'll say to my husband, I say, babe, forget it. I'm just going to stop doing all the things. I'm just going to be a wife. I'm just going to stay at home and be a wife and like clean and do things and just cook and, you know, read books. And no, I'm not going to do any of the things. And she was like, sure, you're right. Yeah, like that's gonna work about 4 days, and then you're gonna have to do a thing, or you're gonna be experiencing some sort of desire to give away something, volunteer for something. It's true. It's like, the reality is, I choose to work. I don't have to work, and so I give away a lot of my time in service because I can. And it's because I want to. It's literally part of my living my life that I've always wanted, is to be able to have the time to give to other people who need it, in for causes and that I believe in. And so that ability to be able to do that is everything to me. And part of it, and I also have really nice glasses in my house. Like I'm surrounded by things I desire. I'm surrounded by, and so part of it, when I lived in New York, I worked in fashion for a really long time, and I had a very heavily service life at a church that I attended there. And I used to say that one balanced the other, because I was like, I have a job where I work really hard at convincing people to convince people they need something that they absolutely don't need. They don't need it. People will get dressed. Like, people will put clothes on whether the fashion industry exists or not. Clothes will be made. People will clothe themselves, and they will wear them, and they will choose whatever color they want, and it will make them happy until they realize that it's out of style, or until someone tells them that it's wrong, right? And so so I had to give as much as I could of self in order to make it feel like I was, it was kind of like when you pay back energy to the energy, you pay it in, because I needed to be able to pay it into what I thought I was kind of diminishing or depleting from kind of the energy that I thought was putting out by the nature of my job. It's part of why I quit. I love fashion.
I can imagine.
It was just part of what I felt like it was out of integrity with what I was kind of putting into the world, and what I was saying was important to me. So I needed to shift. Because art is, fashion can be art, fashion people. I love the idea of adorning ourselves. I love, I thought about all of the things that I did today, so it's not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with fashion. It is 100%. It is just not, it's not the balance that I needed in my life.
Well, it lives in that realm of desire.
Yes.
Fashion is in the realm of desire. And something occurred as you were talking, Robyn, and I wanted to ask you, do you think happiness is related to how close you're working on needs versus desires?
Ooh. Yeah, I guess I would say so. I would say, because I feel that I think I would, if I were only working toward getting a new bag, or getting, acquiring a thing, or achievement, right? If that was the only thing that I was focused on, because I think achieving things at a certain point becomes a desire. It's not a necessity, right? So I think if I'm going to be working toward something, it needs to be something I'm working toward a need, or something that I'm wanting to shift in my life, not the, I really need another pair of shoes, or I need another pair of shoes, not I need a pair of shoes. Right? Like that's,
which is really different. Imagine you don't have a pair of shoes.
Right.
And you're working on getting a pair of shoes, and then you get a pair of shoes, and you have a pair of shoes, so your need is met.
Right.
The satisfaction at that level versus your 35th pair of shoes.
Right.
The satisfaction that is there is a fraction.
Right.
Micro amount. And this is my big question that's kind of like existing for me, which is what is enough? And this conversation of need, want, desire, to me, this could be the way that you run a budget. It could be the way that you run a country. It could be the way that you run a business. And we could really look at profits are in the realm of desire.
Yes.
And yet we have built a culture based on desire. We have built a culture based on the more profits, the more you're winning, versus the more needs you're meeting, the more successful you are. And so this shift is really, to me, where we have to pivot as quickly as possible as a species, or we're really just going to be hurting worse than we already are. Right. And to say that, to put it in context with, the conversation about leaving California because of the homeless people, that particular level of, unhappiness, I would say, which is what that person was experiencing, was unhappiness because they were uncomfortable with how far disconnected they were from their needs.
Right.
They were so disconnected from meeting their needs, because their needs is where that deep soul satisfaction is. It's why they're the primary needs. Yes. Without them, you die. Right. And something like living as close to those areas as you can. I mean, as a parent, that's what I'm trying to teach our girls all the time. And vis-a-vis my own addictions to the latest MacBook Air that I need to get, or I got to get my home office looking just the way it should, and otherwise I can't be productive. And yet I'm trying to share with them, like, let's live without so many toys. Let's live without what is anything above the basics, as much as we can. So it's wow. What if we built a calendar for our family, for example, on needs, wants, and desires, and each week the family did a desire thing. Each week, our Cameron and I got to fulfill a desire. She requesting of me, me requesting of her, like that. You know what I mean? One of the things that was really, really fun is we did a yes day with the kids. Oh, and that was wild. That was amazing. And talk about. Well, I mean, this was no. I mean.
They're
things
young.
that were so amazing, 6 and 9.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're pretty young.
Well, and there's rules, like you can't do things into the future on yes day. You can't go on a plane. You can only buy one thing that's reasonable. You can only ask for one thing. But and so the thing that was so interesting is that what I don't think that adults remember is that every day is a yes day. Yes. Every single day is a yes day. And why it's such a big deal for kids is that they are restricted
all the time
in what they get to say yes to and what they get to ask of us. And yet, as an adult, as a somewhat sovereign person,
right,
every day's a yes day. But I'm so used to that. It's like, talk to somebody who's in prison about wants, needs, desires.
Right.
And they might say, I would just like to go walk in a park. Like I need it. I feel like I'm going to go crazy if I can't go walk in a park. And yet I could go walk in a park all day, every day.
Just in one last night. Yeah.
So,
and I
love your thoughts on that.
I love this idea of that you get to say yes every day. Well, so there was a book that came out in the 60s. It was a psychology book called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And the original premise of it is that from the time that we're young enough to understand anything, we're being told no. Like someone is always telling us no, don't touch that. No, don't do no. And like, when do they ever when is yes? When do I get yes? Like when did yes you can do
Yes.
that? Yes, you are that yes. When do I get to say yes for myself? So that idea of sovereignty over self and the understanding that you get to that you're getting a yes daily. It's like you still have the sovereignty of saying
Yes.
yes to that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like
Yes.
you're still in charge
Yes.
though.
We're still in charge.
We're
We
still
get
in
to say
charge.
yes.
We're allowing you to
Yes.
request for something, except I've already also now put parameters on the yeses that
Yeah, that's right.
So there's
We're not getting on a plane.
right. So there's all of these nuanced places of yes, right? And so and then there's like Shonda Rhimes, her book, The Year of Yes. And what's funny about it is when I heard the title, I thought it was because, How to Get Away with Murder just won, Emmys, and Grey's Anatomy had already blown up all over the place, and she had this, that, and the other thing, and so I thought it was the year of yes because everything was yes, like
yes. Right.
and then I heard her talking about it before I read the book, and it was the fact that she said no to so many things.
Many things.
She was saying yes, when people were inviting her places, so it was really about her opening herself up for hope and possibility. It was
and illimitable.
Yes.
Illimitable. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really yeah. It's like that.
I mean, space right there.
The whole circle. It's beautiful. Well, Tantra is, one of the greatest definitions of Tantra for me. And really, if I would say that there was something that I try to practice is this tantric philosophy piece, which is Tantra is the great yes sayer.
Yeah.
And so you kind of an example that I think of a lot is you get to have opinions, but you say yes to what is. And so you can be stuck in traffic and be a no to that. I'm a no to this. I'm a no to this. But the fact is that you're not going to make the cars move with that no. And so you get the experience of no to this, and your opinion is no to this. But the moment I let myself, when I remember to say, I'm in traffic. Yes. Okay. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, who could I connect with?
Right.
What song could I turn on? Right. Like what else is available? Possibility opens up in a yes, where my no closes it down. And it's the same thing with intimacy. It's the same thing with, it's just Tantra literally says yes.
I love that so much. I love it on several levels. One, I totally do this. I'm always saying to Veronica, I'm always saying, babe, it's just an is. It's like, yep, it's just, yep, this is true. It's just an is. There's no judgment around it. It happened. How we feel about it is then where it becomes good or bad, right? And then I'm like, so I'm always saying, yep. And then it's like, well, I am sitting in traffic. Well, I could call somebody, or I could, I'll put on some meditation music. I'll do a thing. I haven't done that yet. I'll think thoughts.
Yeah, I'll think thoughts. I'll be still. I'll be quiet. I'll turn off the radio.
Right.
So you're right. I get to, in this moment, be slow.
Yes.
When do I get to be slow? Yes. I get to be so centered when I arrive late that everybody's like, oh, thank God you're here now. Look, not I'm so pissed you're late, but just like, wow, everything changed when you walked in.
Right.
Thank you. And you just be, I could use this time for me.
And the other part
this is a gift.
I'm always I use the traffic analogy when I talk about joy versus happiness, because I say that joy is this deep, joy is connected to light and truth, right? Joy is deep and it's part of who you are. So you live as joy at all times. And happiness is a reaction to your situation. So you are either unhappy about something or you are happy about something. So I can be sitting in traffic filled with joy and really unhappy about the traffic that's in front of me.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Now I can add in that layer of I'm unhappy about the fact that there's traffic. And yes, there's traffic. So what I always tell people, I'm a spiritual life coach. So you go to your therapist to figure out what's wrong, and you come to me to figure out what you're going to do about it. And so traffic is here, and now what are you going to do about it, right? So
yeah, it is. Well, and talk about the thing, Robyn, which is, a pending conversation I know we're going to have about meditation, is just this idea of what part of your brain, what chemicals are you producing under different agreements that you have with what's happening. If you have an agreement with what's happening that is a no, then cortisol is occurring at some level, stress is occurring at some level, and you are operating, you just start to, as you say no, you just start operating further back in the brain. You just start operating further and further back towards lizard,
right?
Towards the, the prefrontal cortex is less and less involved. And where happiness lives is in the prefrontal cortex. Where imagination lives is the prefrontal cortex. What money does is, at its best, what more than your needs are, is the ability to pause and have imagination.
Yes.
To pause and have time.
Yes.
And this, and if we're not taught what to do with that, which we're not in school, we're not taught what happens when you're done working.
Right.
We're not taught about what is a good civic-minded community member. What does that look like? Right? There's voting, right? But that's the beginning and the end,
right,
of being civically minded. And then everybody else kind of figures it out on their own, mostly when they retire, and they're like, oh my God, I didn't live a life of service. So now I hope I have some time in my retirement that I can do that. It's just so deep to think about how what we're emphasizing our education on is just not preparing us for this conversation of wants, needs, desires, and how we can, I don't know. I mean, it just keeps unpacking and unpacking and unpacking about how it could show up.
There's so many things. There were so many things. And we are going to put a pin in that meditation conversation, because I want to talk to you about the David Lynch Foundation. And
it's amazing. I love it.
So that is a whole
good. Heart math.
Yes.
Heart math is another one that's really amazing, and the Maharishi effect.
Yes.
And
so
the whole, look at us just working our hands.
I know. It's good. It's gonna be so good. It's juicy. It's juicy. This is good though. I love this because there was the layers of those words, right? And where and how situational they are, and how so I'm getting my spiritual practitioner's license, and one of the things that the spiritual center I'm doing it through is in Oakland, Heart and Soul Center of Light. Woo, woo. But we are one of the things that Reverend Andrea Earl always talks about is what Ernest Holmes said all the time, which is going back to Jesus, that we receive as we believe, right? Like what the experience that we're having and what's happening is whatever we believe it is. So if we are washing our bodies and our clothes in a river, right? And two people are having the exact same experience, and one person is like, oh, I can't believe I have to wash, and I don't have my own, blah, blah, blah. And another person is like, oh, I'm so glad it's washed. I got to have the thing. I got to get all my stuff clean. It's so refreshing. And look at the sunshine. And, like they're having two different experiences. Same kind of idea. I saw this was in California, 2 people being interviewed after the fires, right? And one person's home is, both people's homes are completely destroyed. One person is, I lost everything. We lost everything. And the other person is, we're still here. And and look, we made it out, and we are able to, and I'm so grateful we're safe. And like they're 2 completely different experiences of the exact same thing, and so I feel like that's kind of like the capper on that want, need, desire kind of conversation, is because is it something that you want? Is it something that you really need? Is it something that you simply desire? And it's really situational as to what you believe is something you need. You believe that it's a need. You believe that, but literally going back to, hierarchy of needs, the reality is, as long as you have shelter and water, clean water, and you are safe, and you have food, and your body, and you are clothed, right? And clothed enough for you, because that becomes its own level of things, right?
For sure.
How much do you really need? So that after that, it's all like gravy, and I always said that I could, I had a friend who was she was in the Peace Corps. And I said that I appreciated her, because I was like, there's no way I could live in a place where there was like floods and the dirt floor, and sometimes there's mud and there are big bugs there, and blah, like, I was just thinking about all the things. And I was like, I couldn't have done that. And you did that. Not only did she did that, but she did it, and was there helping people and doing all the things and learning other languages and doing all the stuff. And I'm like, this is why there are people, I always say there are people that are there to like deworm the orphans, right? And then there are people at a party paying $500 a plate to raise the money to send that person out to Africa to do that thing, So there, all of it is necessary. All of the thing, because people have feelings about things, and it's like all of the people have a role. Everyone can play a part, regardless of how uncomfortable you are willing to be. So some people aren't willing to be uncomfortable, and yet they know that they have a role that they can play. And it's like
there's this piece around a couple of things that I want to respect your time, and you tell me when we got to do 2
more minutes, and then we're going to talk about that stone that I chose for you.
Okay, perfect. I'll something that feels important for me to say, because I think that my experience over this last year with COVID, I for the first time experienced something that I would classify as an adult trauma. And this adult trauma, I didn't have a lot of relationship to trauma before, because of doing a lot of yoga, doing a lot of meditation. So I think, and just a lot of personal work, and I was just in a position to get to do those things. And so I think I had that perspective where if the camera were on me, I think I would gather myself in such a way that I would be able to say what I'm grateful for in that moment. And after having the experience of this last year and going through losing, in quotes, everything, I would say that the humanity of trauma and the humanity of want, need, desire inside of somebody's experience of trauma is a roller coaster. And that sometimes that same person that was grateful for we survived, 2 weeks later, a month later, a year later, might find himself breaking down in grief and sadness and anger. And so in the past, I might have been Pollyanna in like, just be grateful for what you got and move on.
Right.
And really actually be able to do that. But the experience of this last year was such where I was like, I can't shake this feeling from my body. Like, I'm not just going back on social media. I'm just not doing it. Well, why aren't I? Well, because it feels traumatic in my body to do that. So I'm not gonna. But shouldn't I just be grateful that I have a good story to tell? You know what I mean? So
Right.
there's something about just like the humanity that I want to have be reminded of myself, that inside this whole humanity game, like that person that was really struggling about losing it all, we don't know which one of them was really the most resilient in the end.
See, and that's just it. It's like everything is perspective, right? It's like,
right.
So at first they were like so overwhelmed by everything that was gone, right? And the other people was so grateful for for what survived. And then on the other side of it is oh, but then they were like, oh, but then and then they remember all the things that were in the house, everything that was there.
That's right.
And so maybe the person at the front end that like mourned everything that they lost right up front later could have introspection and go, except we're all still here.
I'm so thankful.
We're all good, So it's always that, so there was absolutely no judgment in the comparison. And also what happened next and how did you, and then as I said, just like what I do with my clients is like, okay, first we figured out what's wrong. And now what are you going to do about it? It's like, okay, the house burnt down. And now what are you going to do? And now what are we going to do about it?
Now where are we going to go?
What are we going to wait? What's next? What's our next? And then how are we going to decide what's our next? And then who are we going to be in it? And so I think that
so awesome.
So
good.
This is such a good conversation. I knew it was going to be good. I knew it was going to be
good. Thank you, Robyn.
I
love you.
I love you. So I added this fun little segment to the to this because I'm always talking about stones and crystals. I did write a book after all. So I decided that I wanted to choose a stone for each one of my guests. And so I technically chose you a crystal. And I chose citrine for you. So citrine, what's fun about citrine, so because you're so cuspy and you are on that, you are that an interesting cusp that mother love, which is that Cancer cusp, and then the lion, all of that pride. Which interesting though, Leos wear their hearts on their sleeve, so so you are on an interesting emotional cusp because there's a lot of like deep emotion in the middle of it. That's not Pisces cut. That's not Pisces emotion. So citrine is one of the only stones that's actually both a Cancer and Leo stone. And so that's why I chose it. So just as a recap for people who are not familiar with citrine, citrine possesses the healing properties of the sun. So you as a Cancer, which is funny because you're on the sun moon cusp, the Cancer is ruling planet, the moon, and the Leo ruling planet is the sun. And you're like right there.
So cool.
So something to note that natural citrine is generally greenish yellow, brownish yellow. Fired citrine is usually that bright yellow, kind of like our name. And so people, so I always like to give people the lesson about citrine in that citrine comes from amethyst. So first it's amethyst, and then it starts to become citrine, and you get ametrine, and then it becomes citrine, and it has to do with heat. And so you
Oh,
can
wow.
literally create a citrine from an amethyst by artificially firing it, right? So it's not that the properties aren't there. They may not be coming as naturally to the stone, to the crystal itself, if it's been fired versus something that's come out of the earth directly, you know, like where the earth did the work versus the artificial work done outside. So natural citrines are much more expensive than fired citrines. My favorite way to use a citrine is on my third eye. So I loved that we were talking about, you know, your imagination and your creativity, that third eye spot. But citrine is that third eye, sixth. It's a sixth third chakra stone. So they'll say citrine's a third chakra stone. It's also a sixth chakra stone, and that's because they're connected, right? You have to be able to trust. That's your third chakra, your intuition, right? So you have to be able to trust self. So that's why I like to meditate, going back to meditation. I like to meditate with a citrine on your third eye, because it's a great way to see and be open to possibilities, because citrine is a manifestation stone. So it's a great way of allowing yourself to open up to what you are manifesting and be able to trust that it is, that you can do it, that you are worthy of it, and that it is absolutely true, because it is part of consciousness.
Thank you. What a gift. Hey.
So
I love it.
So
I've never thought of that. I've never thought of that sun and moon cusp. I really like that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you know, got to think about all those things. I love,
really cool.
I love how it will, and it's got to be integrated, right? Like that, you know, people have a tendency to talk about the chakras completely alone, separate from one another. They want to take all the different things that they use as a way of saying who we are and separate them. So it's astrology's over here, and, you know, stones and crystals are over here, and this is over here, and that, and it's like, the whole point is, how are you going to use it, and what's it going to mean for you? And then how are you going to make it, because it's always about your journey, right? So, So astrology is a way of understanding self. It is not this, because people will say, oh, I'm a this, so I don't do that, or I'm a this, and I'm like, nope, that's, now you're just telling stories. Okay, now you're just making up. That's not a thing. What it is it's you knowing that about yourself is information, and it again becomes, what are you going to do about it, right? What, you know, what does that mean for you? So I love all my like cusp people. I love those cusps, because they can bring so much magic to your life when you start thinking about what that means, you know. And I'm a Gemini, so anytime that other people can live duality, I'm all about it.
Yeah, right. I'm like, you are a cusp. You're a cusp of two different ends inside yourself. Yeah.
So I'm like, hit that cusp hard.
I love it.
So now we kind of intimated that you were creating something that is new and that you are in the process of. So I want you to tell me a little bit about this co-creation of an online platform. You said it features high-level contributors in the area of yoga, meditation, and coaching. Ooh, I'm already excited about this. So explain more. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think what is there's a few things that are going on in my experience that I had this last year, along with running donation-based yoga studios for 20 years. I've really been inspired to try and, what does it look like to provide access to something like a spiritual practice, like a community that is like-minded, that's not necessarily in a religious context, which is how I grew up. And there was a lot that I loved about that, and a lot that I didn't care for, quite frankly. And so the yoga studio has always kind of served that place where hopefully there's, you know, millionaires and folks that, you know, barely scrape together some change for a class, and together this modality made it a neutral space, a safe space was the intention. And
achieved.
And now as I
and say it was achieved as someone who experienced the studio in the space. We were just all there together. So it didn't matter who anybody was outside of that space. We were all there and equally on our mats with you. So you achieved it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, it was beautiful. It is beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. And so now I think, you know, a big part of the kind of direction that we're going is away from social media, and just really seeing social media as a wonderful, horrible thing, and that it's really both. And so how to create community now that we're experimenting with life outside of being so much together. Some part of that's going to continue for some group of people, and then hopefully we'll get to experience a lot more togetherness, but we may not in the way that we have. I don't know, but the idea of how can we support the nonprofits that are doing the work out in the world, and those individuals that work for nonprofits, and the people that donate to those nonprofits, such that the model that we're putting together is, if you're taking care of yourself through our platform, then you will be taking care of nonprofits that you care about. And so by taking care of self, you are taking care of community. Yeah, it's really a fun thing. So I don't want to be marketing everything on social media. I don't want to be doing the platform out with the herd. I want to be a place that really supports, because the nonprofits are doing the work that I think that countries need, that are really important, and they've been really hit hard by COVID. And
yes.
So yeah.
As a president of a board of a nonprofit, I can 100% say that people aren't giving, right? Because they're feeling in need. And and what's interesting is because they can't, it's not the money even necessarily, right? That they, you know, people will give, they'll even give you $2 if they only have $5, right? If they feel like that they can, if they're feeling fed, right?
Yes.
And that's the part. It's like, if I am feeling fed and filled and whole and still and complete, then I don't have fear about, you know, letting go of something. So I love the idea that you're like, look, all you have to do is be here and feed yourself. And in the process of that, you are helping others do the work.
Well, this is something, something that you're saying that I think is a curious thing. $2.6 trillion in just the United States has been saved by individuals over the course of this pandemic. So $2.6 trillion is sitting in banks right now that is mostly citizen driven.
Oh my
companies
goodness.
As well.
They're just
and they're just sitting on their cash out of fear.
Yes.
Now, how much of that was going to charity or nonprofit before? I don't know. But I think in this conversation of needs, wants, desires, much of this money that's sitting on the sidelines, people's needs are taken care of. And so my concern is that we're going to come roaring out of this pandemic, focusing on desires and spending $2.6 trillion on desires. And what I think is really, really important as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as influencers, is that we focus people on what are the needs in the greater community, meaning environmental and social, that we can support with this huge amount of cash that's sitting on the sidelines right now. that is going to express itself in some kind of therapy, retail therapy or something therapy.
Yes.
And it's going to be a wild. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Wow, I had not heard that statistic. The statistic is mind-boggling. So's the guy with the
with the thing
with the lawn. But
I'm blessed. Thank you.
In my mind altogether. So I can't. This is going to be just with that idea that this is how you want to help the process, right? Like it's like we're in this journey together. So it's like, well, look, let me help you by helping you.
Yes.
And connecting you with all of these people that I know that I'm connected to that can help you think and expand and grow and be and sit in stillness and joy. And so what I have been working really hard at no longer using the word growth because it's really about expansion, right? Because growth is directional, and expansion.
I like it. Yeah. Is circumferential.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So that is what you are offering people the opportunity to do, because as we know, prosperity is abundance. It's the abundance of all things good. Yes, according to Catherine Ponder. So we need to make sure that people feel that. And when they're feeling that, I think that it'll just up level that feeling by knowing I took this class, I did this thing, I got on the platform, I did the thing. And also while I was doing it, good stuff was happening. Like I know that because where my dollar goes is really important to me. I am so focused on where I will not spend money and where I will spend money, because I want to make sure that once I've done the thing, that the money is then still used to keep the good going, right? So because I make money by spending a lot of time helping people find good in their lives, and so they pay me in gratitude for helping them do that, and then that money then has to keep going. So every time I spend $1, I want to make sure that dollar grows and gets bigger and expansive in ways that are important to who I am as a person. So I love all the layers of what you are creating. I can't wait.
Yeah, thank you. Well, more to come. I appreciate you.
So last but not least, how can people find you? So give me all the points. Is there like any way that people can find you? Like, is there YouTube videos?
Yeah, I mean, not right this second. We're keeping things a little bit closer to the chest for probably another 30 days. But my Facebook is Patrick Harrington, and I welcome you to reach out if you're curious. I'm always open to that. And then of course you and I will chat again, and we can open it up and share a little bit more.
Yes, it's gonna be so good. I'm excited. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for this beautiful conversation. Thank you for saying yes. I am grateful for you, my friend.
Me too. Thank you, Robyn.
Thank you guys for being with us. Thank you for listening and thinking, and make sure you subscribe. These are good conversations that I am having with these wonderful people that I get to know and that I call friends. And you don't want to miss anything. Every time we do something, you want to make sure you get that notification. So make sure you subscribe. And I will see you next Saturday. We will have a new conversation. I'm grateful that you are here, and I am grateful to be able to remind you that you are illimitable. So go out and create a life that rocks. Woo! I love you.
Love you too. Bye.